The blizzard hit Copper Ridge, Michigan, like a frozen sledgehammer. What meteorologists called the storm of the century buried the small town of 3,400 people under 8 feet of snow in 18 hours. Temperatures plummeted to -30 degrees, and winds howled at 60 miles per hour, creating whiteout conditions that made rescue impossible. Sarah Mitchell huddled with her 3 children in their farmhouse kitchen, the only room they could keep marginally warm. Their furnace had died on the storm's second day, and the propane for their backup heater was running dangerously low. 8-year-old Tommy's lips were turning blue despite the blankets wrapped around him. "Mommy, I'm so cold," whispered her youngest, 5-year-old Emma, as Sarah pulled her closer. Outside, the wind screamed like a living thing, and snow continued to pile against their windows. The power had been out for 36 hours, and their cell phones had died. They were completely cut off from the world. Across town, elderly Frank Peterson sat alone in his trailer, burning furniture to stay alive. At 78, the Korean War veteran had survived enemy fire and harsh winters, but this storm was different. His medications were running out, and hypothermia was setting in. He knew he might not see another sunrise. Mayor Lisa Chen tried to coordinate rescue efforts from the emergency shelter at City Hall, but the roads were impassable. State plows couldn't reach them, and helicopters couldn't fly in the conditions. 23 families were trapped in their homes with failing heat. Time was running out, and she felt helpless watching her community slowly freeze. That night, Sarah used the last of her phone's battery to send one desperate text to her sister in Grand Rapids. "Tell someone we're dying here. Please." Sarah's sister, Jessica, received the text just as the news was showing aerial footage of Copper Ridge buried under mountains of snow. Desperate, she did something she'd never imagined. She called every government number she could find until someone connected her to the White House emergency line. "Sir, my sister and her children are freezing to death in Michigan," Jessica pleaded. "The whole town is cut off. Please, somebody has to help them." The aide took detailed information and promised to pass it along, but Jessica feared it would disappear into bureaucracy while people died. 2 hours later, her phone rang. "Ma'am, this is President Trump. I heard about Copper Ridge. We're launching an immediate rescue operation." Jessica could barely speak. "Mr. President, they don't have much time. My sister's babies." Trump's voice was firm and reassuring. "Ma'am, help is already on the way." Within the hour, the National Guard's most experienced Arctic rescue teams were mobilized. Military helicopters equipped for extreme weather launched from 3 bases. Emergency supplies, heaters, fuel, medical equipment, and food were loaded onto specially equipped snow vehicles. The president had turned the full power of the federal government toward saving one small Michigan town. At 4 a.m., Sarah heard the impossible sound of helicopter rotors cutting through the storm. Through her frozen window, she saw military searchlights piercing the darkness. "Children, wake up!" she cried, tears freezing on her cheeks. "Help is here." The National Guard medics, who broke down her door, found a family on the edge of hypothermia but alive. Within minutes, portable heaters filled the kitchen with blessed warmth, and hot soup warmed little hands that had been too cold to move. As dawn broke over Copper Ridge, an entire town witnessed what could only be called a miracle. Despite weather conditions that had grounded all civilian aircraft, military rescue helicopters continued their life-saving missions. House by house, family by family, the National Guard pulled people back from the brink of freezing to death. Frank Peterson wept when soldiers found him barely conscious in his trailer. "I thought I was done for, boys," he whispered as they wrapped him in warming blankets. "We've got you now, sir," the medic replied. "President Trump sent us personally to make sure every soul in this town makes it home." By noon, all 23 trapped families had been evacuated to the emergency warming center that guard engineers had constructed in the school gymnasium. Military generators provided power, field kitchens served hot meals, and medical personnel treated dozens of cases of frostbite and hypothermia. But Trump wasn't finished. As soon as weather permitted, supply convoys began arriving with everything the town needed: new furnaces, propane, generators, winter clothing, and enough food to last weeks. The president had declared Copper Ridge a federal emergency zone, unlocking resources that transformed a potential tragedy into a story of survival. Sarah stood in the warming center, watching her children play with other kids who 12 hours earlier had been facing death. Mayor Chen approached her with tears in her eyes. "Sarah, the president is on the phone. He wants to speak with you personally." Trump's voice was warm despite the distance. "Sarah, I heard you're a hero, keeping those babies safe in impossible conditions." Sarah could barely speak. "Mr. President, you saved us all." Trump's response would stay with her forever. "No, Sarah. You saved yourselves. I just made sure America didn't abandon its own." 3 weeks after the blizzard, Copper Ridge looked like a different town. New heating systems hummed efficiently in every home. Emergency generators stood ready in case of future power outages. The community center had been upgraded into a full emergency shelter capable of housing the entire population if needed. Most remarkably, Trump kept a promise many thought was just political rhetoric. He came to visit the town personally once the roads were clear. Sarah Mitchell stood with her 3 children in the crowd gathered at the school, watching the presidential motorcade navigate streets that had recently been impassable with snow. "He really came," 8-year-old Tommy said in wonder. "The president really came to see us." Sarah squeezed his hand, still amazed that their desperate night had led to this moment. Trump spoke to the crowd from the same gymnasium where they'd all taken shelter during the storm. 3 weeks ago, Copper Ridge faced nature's worst, and you showed America's best," Trump said, his breath visible in the still cold air. "When the storm tried to break you, you held each other close and refused to surrender. That's the American spirit I'm proud to serve." Frank Peterson, the veteran who had nearly died alone, was given the honor of presenting Trump with a key to the city. "Mr. President," the old soldier said with a voice strengthened by survival, "you didn't just save our lives. You reminded us that in America, nobody fights alone." As Trump prepared to leave, he knelt down to speak with Sarah's children. "Remember this," he told them. "No storm lasts forever, and there's always someone ready to help if you don't give up hope." Little Emma, who had nearly frozen 3 weeks earlier, handed him a drawing of a helicopter in the snow with the words, "Thank you for saving us," written in crayon. The blizzard that tried to erase Copper Ridge from the map instead became the storm that proved American communities never stand alone when facing their darkest hours.